The world watches as tensions escalate between Russia and Ukraine. In a significant show of support, the UK and French defense chiefs are heading to Kyiv.
It underscores the West's commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and sends a clear message to Moscow.
Firstly, it demonstrates unwavering support for Ukraine. By sending their top military officials, the UK and France are reassuring Kyiv of their commitment to its security.
Secondly, the visit serves as a deterrent. The presence of high-ranking Western military personnel in Kyiv is a clear signal to Russia.
Lastly, the visit paves the way for increased military cooperation. The UK and France have already been providing military aid to Ukraine.
The talks will likely focus on enhancing Ukraine's defensive capabilities and strengthening its resilience against Russian aggression.
Across the vast plains of Eastern Europe, a shadow looms large. Russia, under the leadership of Vladimir Putin, has been steadily increasing its military presence near the Ukrainian border.
It is a stark reminder of Russia's willingness to use force to achieve its geopolitical objectives. Satellite images and intelligence reports paint a worrying picture. They show a significant concentration of Russian troops, tanks, and heavy artillery in regions adjacent to Ukraine.
Western leaders have expressed deep concern over Russia's actions.
The buildup has also raised fears of a potential invasion, although Russia denies any such plans. The timing of the buildup, coinciding with heightened tensions between Russia and the West, suggests a calculated move by Putin to assert dominance and test the resolve of NATO.
The Russian military buildup near Ukraine is not merely a symbolic gesture.
This includes main battle tanks such as the T-72 and T-90, capable of engaging in armored warfare and providing fire support to infantry. Alongside the tanks, Russia has also deployed a significant number of infantry fighting vehicles.
The buildup also includes a substantial artillery component.
The presence of such heavy firepower underscores the seriousness of Russia's military posture.
Vladimir Putin's decision to amass troops near Ukraine is a high-stakes gamble, one that carries significant risks and potential rewards.
One possibility is that Putin is seeking to extract concessions from the West.
Another possibility is that Putin is seeking to reassert Russia's dominance in its near abroad, the former Soviet republics that Moscow views as falling within its sphere of influence.
The annexation of Crimea in 2014 demonstrated Putin's willingness to use military force to achieve these aims.
Whatever his ultimate objectives, Putin's actions have plunged Europe into a new era of uncertainty and tension.
The halls of British politics reverberated with a stark warning as Labour leader Keir Starmer addressed the escalating crisis in Ukraine.
Starmer's statement, delivered with measured gravity, highlighted the precariousness of the situation.
The Labour leader's intervention was significant for several reasons. Firstly, it demonstrated that the Ukraine crisis transcended partisan politics.
Secondly, it highlighted the growing concern within the UK about Putin's intentions. Starmer's words tapped into this anxiety, framing the Ukraine crisis as part of a broader pattern of Russian hostility towards the West. To understand the current tensions between the UK and Russia, one must delve into the annals of history. The relationship between these two nations has long been characterized by a complex interplay of rivalry, mistrust, and occasional cooperation. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 offered a brief window of opportunity for a reset in relations. However, the hope for a new era of partnership proved short-lived. The annexation of Crimea in 2014 and Russia's support for separatists in eastern Ukraine further strained relations, leading to sanctions and diplomatic censure. Keir Starmer's stark warning about Putin's dangerous games did not fall on deaf ears. Public opinion polls conducted in the wake of Starmer's speech revealed a palpable sense of anxiety. This apprehension was fueled by a steady stream of news reports highlighting Russia's military buildup and bellicose rhetoric. Social media platforms became echo chambers for these anxieties, with hashtags like #StandWithUkraine and #Putin trending nationwide. The public's response to Starmer's remarks underscored the gravity of the situation. In the heart of Eastern Europe, facing a formidable adversary, Ukraine stands defiant.
This ongoing conflict has forced Ukraine to rapidly modernize its armed forces and adapt to the evolving nature of warfare.
Its armed forces, once hampered by outdated equipment and low morale, have undergone a significant transformation.
One of Ukraine's key strengths lies in its defensive posture.
Ukraine has also made effective use of asymmetric tactics, employing hit-and-run attacks and ambushes to harass Russian forces and disrupt their supply lines. Across the English Channel, the UK has emerged as a steadfast ally to Ukraine, providing not only moral support but also tangible military assistance.
The UK's support has taken various forms. One of the most significant contributions has been the provision of lethal aid, including anti-tank missiles such as the NLAW or Next Generation Light Anti-Tank Weapon.
In addition to weaponry, the UK has also provided extensive training to Ukrainian forces, sharing expertise in areas such as battlefield medicine, logistics and counterinsurgency operations.
The UK's commitment to Ukraine's defence goes beyond immediate military aid.
Across the continent, France has also played a crucial role in supporting Ukraine, albeit with a more nuanced approach than its British counterpart.
However, as Russia's aggression has persisted, France has gradually shifted towards a more assertive stance, recognizing the need for a robust response to deter further Russian adventurism.
In recent years, France has supplied Ukraine with a range of military equipment, including armored vehicles, drones, and electronic warfare systems.
France has also stepped up its military cooperation with Ukraine, conducting joint exercises and providing training to Ukrainian forces.
France's decision to increase its military support for Ukraine reflects a growing recognition within the French government that Russia's actions pose a direct threat to European security. As the crisis in Ukraine unfolds, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, finds itself at a critical juncture. The presence of Russian troops on Ukraine's border has injected a sense of urgency into NATO's deliberations. Some, particularly those in Eastern Europe with direct experience of Russian aggression, have advocated for a more robust military posture. Others, mindful of the risks of escalation, have urged a more cautious approach, emphasizing diplomacy and dialogue as the primary means of resolving the crisis. Despite these internal differences, NATO has demonstrated a remarkable degree of unity in its response to the crisis. Beyond the immediate military threat posed by Russia, the crisis in Ukraine has exposed another vulnerability for Europe's energy security. For decades, Europe has relied heavily on Russia for its energy needs, particularly natural gas. This dependence on Russian energy has given Moscow considerable leverage over Europe, a factor that Putin has not hesitated to exploit. The crisis in Ukraine has spurred a renewed push within Europe to diversify its energy sources and reduce its dependence on Russia. However, these efforts will take time to bear fruit, and in the meantime, Europe remains vulnerable to Russian pressure. As the crisis in Ukraine unfolds, all eyes have turned to Beijing, eager to discern China's stance on this escalating geopolitical showdown. China, under the leadership of Xi Jinping, has cultivated a complex relationship with Russia, characterized by a strategic partnership rooted in shared economic interests and a common distrust of the West. In the lead-up to Russia's military build-up near Ukraine, China and Russia declared a no-limits partnership, signaling a deepening of ties between the two countries. However, the subsequent invasion of Ukraine has put China in a delicate position, forcing it to navigate a geopolitical tightrope. On the one hand, China is wary of alienating Russia, a key strategic partner and a crucial source of energy and raw materials. On the other hand, China is also mindful of the potential economic and reputational costs of being seen as supporting Russia's actions, which have been widely condemned by the international community. As a result, China has adopted a position of calculated ambiguity, refraining from explicitly condemning Russia's invasion while also calling for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. This balancing act reflects China's desire to safeguard its own interests while avoiding entanglement in a conflict that could have unpredictable consequences. A world on edge. The Ukraine crisis and global security. The reverberations of artillery fire in Eastern Europe echo far beyond the battlefields of Ukraine. The ongoing conflict, ignited by Russia's invasion, has sent shockwaves through the international system, shattering long-held assumptions about European security and raising profound questions about the future of global order. At the heart of the crisis lies a fundamental clash of principles. Russia's actions, a blatant violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, have challenged the very foundations of the rules-based international order established in the aftermath of World War II. This order, premised on the principles of non-aggression, respect for international law, and the peaceful resolution of disputes, has been shaken to its core. The crisis has also exposed the fragility of global security architecture. The United Nations Security Council, tasked with maintaining international peace and security, has been rendered largely ineffective due to Russia's veto power as a permanent member. This paralysis has highlighted the limitations of multilateral institutions in addressing crises involving major powers. Furthermore, the conflict has exacerbated existing geopolitical tensions, particularly between Russia and the West. The relationship, already strained by years of mistrust and animosity, has plummeted to new lows, raising the spectre of a new Cold War with the potential to divide the world into opposing blocs. The price of conflict, economic and humanitarian fallout. As the war in Ukraine grinds on, its devastating consequences are being felt far beyond the battlefield. The conflict has triggered a humanitarian catastrophe, displaced millions of people, and wreaked havoc on the global economy, exacerbating existing inequalities and pushing the world towards a cost-of-living crisis. Within Ukraine, the human toll of the conflict is staggering. Millions of people have been forced to flee their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring countries or within Ukraine itself. The United Nations estimates that over 10 million Ukrainians have been internally displaced, while millions more have crossed borders into Poland, Romania, and other neighboring states. The conflict has also had a devastating impact on Ukraine's economy. Key industries have been crippled, infrastructure destroyed, and agricultural production disrupted, leading to widespread shortages of food, water, and other essential goods. The World Bank estimates that Ukraine's economy could contract by as much as 45% in 2022, a staggering figure that underscores the scale of the economic devastation. Beyond Ukraine's borders, the conflict has sent shockwaves through the global economy, disrupting supply chains, driving up energy prices, and fueling inflation. The war has exacerbated existing inflationary pressures, which were already building due to the COVID-19 pandemic and other factors. This perfect storm of economic headwinds has pushed up the cost of living for millions of people worldwide, particularly in developing countries that are highly dependent on imports of food and energy. Putin's playbook, lessons from history, challenges for the future. Vladimir Putin's decision to invade Ukraine has been met with widespread condemnation and disbelief. Many observers have struggled to comprehend the Russian leader's motivations, questioning his strategic calculus and accusing him of recklessness on a grand scale. To understand Putin's actions, it is essential to examine them within the broader context of his worldview and his long-term strategic objectives. Putin's worldview is shaped by a deep-seated belief in Russian exceptionalism and a yearning to restore Russia to its former glory as a great power. He views the collapse of the Soviet Union as a geopolitical catastrophe, a humiliation that he is determined to reverse. This revanchist impulse has driven his foreign policy for over 2 decades, leading to military interventions in Georgia, Syria, and now Ukraine. Putin's actions in Ukraine are also driven by a desire to weaken NATO, which he sees as an existential threat to Russia's security. He has long sought to sow divisions within the alliance, exploiting differences in strategic outlook and national interests among member states. The invasion of Ukraine, a non-NATO member, can be seen as an attempt to test the alliance's resolve and expose its perceived weaknesses. The international community's response to Putin's aggression has been swift and decisive. However, the crisis has also exposed the limitations of existing mechanisms for deterring and punishing aggression by major powers. The conflict highlights the need for a renewed commitment to multilateralism, strengthened international institutions, and a more robust system of global governance capable of upholding international law and ensuring peace and security in the 21st century. The high price of freedom, a defining moment for Ukraine and the world. The world holds its breath as the UK and French defense chiefs arrive in Kyiv. Their visit, a powerful symbol of solidarity, comes at a pivotal moment for Ukraine and the international order. The stakes could not be higher. Ukraine's future hangs in the balance, its fate intertwined with the broader struggle between democracy and authoritarianism. The visit underscores the West's commitment to Ukraine, a nation facing an existential threat from its larger and more powerful neighbor. The message is clear. Ukraine is not alone. The UK, France, and their NATO allies stand ready to support Ukraine's right to self-determination and its territorial integrity. This support, both military and diplomatic, is crucial in deterring further Russian aggression and bolstering Ukraine's defenses. However, the path ahead remains perilous. Putin's intentions remain opaque, his actions unpredictable. The risk of miscalculation, of a spark igniting a wider conflagration, looms large. The world watches and waits, hoping for a diplomatic solution, yet bracing for the possibility of a protracted conflict with far-reaching consequences. In this time of uncertainty, one thing is clear: the outcome of the crisis in Ukraine will have profound implications for the future of Europe and the international order. The world is at a crossroads. The choices made today by leaders in Kyiv, Moscow, London, Paris, Washington and beyond will shape the course of history for generations to come.